Next 35 or 40 minutes, we're going to go on a quest. In that quest, we're going to discover 4 things. We're going to identify one of the most important words in our vocabulary. We're then going to look at some forces of change that are trying to erase that word. Then identify a countering strategy that we can use to build our brand, build our business, build our careers. And finally, making sure that regardless of disruption, we're part of the people that are making things happen versus wondering what happened. If I'm going to be part of your quest, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My first job, West Island, Montreal, sold radio for CFOX. Had a Samsonite briefcase packed with all the literature and banners and demo tapes. Driving up St. Charles Boulevard one day, and I noticed in front of a restaurant, a A-frame opening soon. I thought, what a cold call opportunity. Drove in, walked in, tracked down the owners, a couple. But 16 seconds into my pitch, briefcase just coming open. And they said, whoa, if you're here to sell us advertising, we'd love to buy some advertising. We have no money, we're all in. We borrow from friends and families, our credit cards are maxed out. Packed up that briefcase and it felt a lot heavier on the way out. I'm just walking out the door. Just as I'm getting out, I hear, hey kid, I turn around. You hungry? Yeah? You want to try some of our ribs? We're just bringing a test plate out. We'd love to see what you think. Man, up until then, Barbie Barn in Montreal was my rib joint. This thing was just smoked it. It's fantastic. Spent some time to say, hey, if you're around next day, we're bringing out the biscuits and chicken, and I showed up right on time. And by day 3, I guess I'd become friends enough that they found $300 that they put together for an ad campaign, and I was vested in their business. I mean, I got the best producers. I put it on the radio and ran it for a week. I showed up opening night. I burst in, and nobody was there. Just a couple and a couple of friends. I felt so bad for them, but then I heard something magical. The door behind me opening up, and then it opened again and opened again. Before you know, the place was jammed. I started busking tables, and more than once I asked people, how did they hear about it? And more than once I heard on the radio. And I found my chosen career. I wanted to connect buyers and sellers. I wanted ideas and content that would bring commerce together. After that, I spent 3 decades as an entrepreneur. I built 2 ad agencies, research firm. I won awards, Agency of the Year. I became part of the Marketing Hall of Legends. Past 8 years, I've traveled the world speaking and hosting at conferences. I have a podcast called Chatter That Matters, a radio show. And through this entire time, there's only one word that matters. My entire career can be compressed into a single word. And I argue the most important word in our vocabulary, and that word's attention. Attention is the oxygen. It breathes life into all endeavors. You need attention to teach and coach and mentor, to market and sell. You need attention to attract the people that matter most to your business, the employees, the influencers, and the customers. But I would argue that today, most brands and businesses and people and careers and resumes, most of everything is starving for attention, and for 4 reasons. First is we're just living in the age of noise. It's a math problem. Too much and too many is chasing a finite amount of time. We're drinking content from a fire hose, and no matter what you put in that fire hose, how good your presentations are, your advertising, your marketing, so much of it is being spilt on the floor. So we've got to find a way to make sure your content is being heard. Second thing is the mobile phone. It's not a phone, it's a wand. 1 in 7 days is spent on this personal device because it brings in the world that you covet and puts it within arm's reach of desire. How do you spend 1 in 7 days? Because you navigate on it, you validate, you aggregate, you curate, you publish, you connect, you buy, you sell, you trade, you shop. Each day, it's becoming a more powerful device for you. Third thing, if you listen around you, platform economy. It's getting created everywhere. It's these little apps that ride like Trojan horses into mobile devices, and they compromise, commoditize entire supply chains. They change the whole rules of engagement. Like, who owns a customer nowadays? Is it Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, or McDonald's that spent billions over the years creating their golden arches and building brands like the Big Mac? Is it Booking.com or Hilton? Think of our sector and how these apps are trying to disrupt where we have our value proposition. This platform economy, it's becoming so significant. This didn't exist at the beginning of the century. Now it's almost worth $10 trillion. And finally, we're dealing with the pandemic, our obsession with this sledgehammer that's disrupted so many different sectors. And when you look at these forces of change, You really are creating a very different marketplace. Middle ground is disappearing. In commerce, in the marketplace, it's people that are making things happen, or people are watching or wondering what happened. So how do you counter? How do you get the attention that you deserve? Well, I found that out 20 years ago. I was at a conference, sitting in a room, 1,000 people. In those days, the speakers came up in the front of a podium, their pinstripe suits and their shirts with their initials on it. And this guy comes on stage in hiking boots and khaki pants and dragging this coat rack with this dirty old hat on it. And he starts talking, and about a third of the way in, he starts referencing the hat. He says, I don't know about you, but there's times when I just need to get away, find an oasis, escape the grid. He says, I do it by hiking. He said, you know that hat? My grandfather gave it to me. My grandfather taught me to love hiking. He's no longer with me, but every once in a while he talks to me through that hat. I go down the stairs every day, I ignore it, and one day it just says it's time. And that's the days that I decide to go hiking. So I put on my hiking boots. I hate my hiking boots in the city. They're gnarly, they're sweaty. But when I get out off the beaten path, they come to life. One day, I'm out there, and it's one of those beautiful June days where you're in the sun, you're delaring. When you're in the shade, it's getting chilly, and it's so beautiful and crisp. It's so quiet. I feel like I can hear the birds singing in the thermals. So I'm walking along, and I'm finding that mindfulness that we read about. I'm almost meditating, and I turn this corner, and I stumble upon a rock quarry. See the juxtaposition from hearing birds in the thermal to the air had got this acid smell to it, and it looks like ants running up and down the mountain as these people are defacing the mountain. But I have to get through this quarry to get to where I'm going. So as I'm walking along, I kind of run into someone. Here I am in my knapsack and hiking, and this person's just covered in dirt, and I just kind of break, what are you doing here? I get this eye roll and this look, buddy, what do you think I'm doing? I'm cutting rock. I'm walking along, and I almost run into another person, same question, doing the same job, same eye roll, same answer. Just as I'm leaving, I notice a woman doing the same thing, but she's got a skip to her step. She's singing. She's got her eyes are shining. And she smiles at me, and I just say, so what's going on here? She goes, I'm part of a team, and we're building a great cathedral. Now, I'm sure that story never really happened because it's one of the oldest fables known to humankind. But it hit me because I realized at that moment that I was very good at getting consumers to buy my clients' products and services, but they'd never really bought in. I was good at oiling the transactional wheel, but it wasn't a transformative. And that's what I saw there, that woman felt she was part of something bigger than just cutting rock. Somebody had brought into a bigger story, a desired outcome, or what this cathedral would be, or what it would mean for spirituality, or mean for safety, or safe haven, whatever. When she was cutting rock, she saw herself in something bigger. And I realized then that it was stories. She was part of a bigger story. And I just started looking at stories, and I said, what is it about stories that are so magical? And I found out that we're wired for stories. And you think about it, some of your best memories with grandparents or your parents was when they read you stories, the ghost stories around the fire where you felt the hair in the back of your neck go. You know, stories like Uncle Tom's Cabin started to shatter biases. There's stories that are so powerful, they've changed cultures over decades. October 14th, 1948. Humans had yet to fly at the speed of sound. In fact, if I could take you back there, half the world didn't want anything to do with it. That's God's territory. The planet will implode. Our atmosphere will disappear. The pilot's going to burn up. The other half had an appetite for change. They wanted America to lead the space race. They wanted new records to be set. That Saturday morning, this pilot, Chuck Yeager, nursing broken ribs because he was horsing around a few days earlier, but he didn't want to tell anybody because he wanted to fly that day. And here's what he said in his autobiography. I knew it was today. I knew it was today that we would get the dream we wanted. And as that plane took off, I just let it fly. I pointed the nose up, and it was like a bird. And I just let it go. I kept looking down at the gauge and looking up, and then I heard something we've been dreaming of hearing for so long. The sonic boom, the sound barrier. And the gauge confirmed it, Mach 1. For the first time ever, we were flying at the speed of sound. But it was a perfectly paced speedway, a poke through jello. Grandma could be sitting beside me sipping lemonade. Later, much later, I realized the barriers had never been in the sky, but always in our minds. You know, years later in NASA, when engineers said that can't happen, we can't make that work, they'd come back and say, where are the barriers? Are they in the sky or in their minds? I found out so much about storytelling, I didn't realize that stories actually change your brainwaves. Let's do an experiment. I'm going to change all of your brainwaves. Imagine it, every Saturday morning we get together and I come in and first thing you say, hey, what'd you do last night? Oh, I had something to eat. Well, you're smart. In fact, everybody is listening smart because you can decipher those words and know that I had something to eat. But you probably would also think I was a pretty boring person. But if you asked me that same question, I walked in saying, oh, last night, you remember that bar we were in last year with the big gold lettering? Well, now the restrictions are over. I walk back in, there's energy happening. I find my way, I get a seat at the bar. Next thing you know, I got one of those craft beers, so cool, little floats of ice chips, and I'm just, delicious. Starving. The bartender comes up and says, what do you want? I said, I want your best burger. He said, well, we do have a mighty fine burger, but have you had beef bourguignon? I said, beef bourguignon, my grandma used to make it. I tell you, it's our special tonight. I've got 2 left. You got to try it. I said, what? Let's go for it. This thing shows up. It's in a bathtub, I swear. Crusty bread, brown gravy, grilled mushrooms, those little white onions that just explode in your mouth, and the meat's so soft. Well, when I tell you a story like that, some of your motor cortexes have fired. You actually went with me to that bar and you found your way to that seat in your Century, and someone was reaching for that beer, or there's some of you that are even hungry. That's what stories do. They take you out of the day and the transactions and the fire hose, and they bring you to a different place. So I wanted to find out everything I could know about storytelling because I wanted to be the best at helping my clients to tell stories. I met with Chuck Lorre, if you know him, Big Bang, 2.5 Men, went to Oxford, TED Talks, studied with some of the best storytellers, read everything I could. And what I found out, and what is so amazing for you, is storytelling is so simple, yet so powerful. Storytelling really involves an arc. Time and time again, it begins with the protagonist, the hero. And authors are very smart in making that hero accessible. I can relate to that person. That could be my sister, my brother, that could be me. That story would last 2 minutes and get boring. Then suddenly there's a knock at the door and something changes normality, which forces that protagonist to go on a quest, to leave their home. That Frodo Baggins leaves the Shire, to go off with dwarfs he just met. Cinderella goes to the ball. Luke Skywalker feels he can defeat the evil Empire as a Jedi. So they go on a quest, and there's challenges and obstacles, and they're just life and death situations which bring you in. And along the way, they face ferocious competitors, but there's always people that help them get to where they want to go, those Yodas of the world. At the end, there's the desired outcome. And time again, I would argue you begin a story knowing how it's going to end, knowing the hero will survive, but you go along with it. But the thing that was fascinating to me is, why do people ever leave their normality? And it's really 4 reasons. Maslow talked about it as the famous psychologist. It's the theory of human motivation, that we're always searching for things. As humans, we always want more safety and security. So I will leave what I have today to feel more safe and secure. Sometimes it's love and belonging. I'm searching to belong. It's not just romantic love, to connect. You belong to an amazing organization. Sometimes I'm going for purpose, treasure, reward, success. And other times, finally, it's just to be a better human being. And those are the 2 dynamics that make for every great story. So I asked myself, could we apply that to products and services and people? Could the same principles of having this arc and having these 4 motivations, could they work together to get the attention that you deserve? Let's take a look.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. And when I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more, just to be in the middle of 1,000 miles, to fall down at your door.
Well, what an incredible piece of storytelling. I mean, the hero's the dog. Is there a better life than having Clydesdales as your best friend and an owner that loves you? Then you get abandoned. You feel for this dog. Talk about challenges. Seeking shelter in the pouring rain and this collapsing cardboard box. Crossing these cold, dark farmer fields. Finally seeing the light of the farm. We feel joyous. And then the wolf shows up. It's about to eat the dog. And then the enablers, the Clydesdales, come to the rescue. And we end with the owner and the dog and the Clydesdales celebrating. Now, I don't know how they got a beer served at dawn, but that's not the point. The point was fantastic storytelling. And if you like that story, you probably like Lassie Comes Home, Toy Story 3, where Woody gets abandoned, and thousands of other stories that have followed the same arc. My one question, my one critique, though, is what's Budweiser doing in there? Say, it's a great piece of attention grabbing. It's the #1 Super Bowl ad of all time. But did Budweiser really have a role? And this is what I want to take you to now. Storytelling, learn the art, learn the reasons why, but most importantly, what role do you play in the story? I'll give you another example. Technology. I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of who's got the fastest network, the most friendly network, favorite network, 5G, 4G. I stick a fork in my eye. I don't care. But when you start telling a story about what technology can do for me, I'll push aside that firehouse and pay attention because it's about me. So in this piece, the protagonist, the hero, is someone that's probably the greatest sports fan of all time. I can say that because for 30 years, he's never missed his home team play. He's gone to every game. He lives in a little apartment in Paris, but he's managed to carve out a little shire where he's got all the memorabilia. He can take you through every big goal. But the sad thing about this story that you'll see, he's been to every home game for 30 years, but he's never once seen him play.
Bah non, il n'y a pas un matin où je me lève où j'y pense pas. Hein. Pour moi, le foot, c'est l'OM. Voilà. C'est à moi, c'est ma vie, c'est mon club, c'est dans mes tripes. Alors, ma femme et ma fille, elles se foutent souvent de moi, mais... Et depuis 30 ans, j'ai pas raté un match à domicile. Pas un. En même temps, j'en ai pas vu un seul. Pourtant, je me souviens de tout, hein. De tout. Je me voyais dans la tête de Basile Boli en 93 contre Paris. Les filets qui tremblent, le stade qui chavire, la joie des joueurs. Vous ne pouvez pas savoir ce que c'est d'être aussi près de vos idoles et de ne pas pouvoir les voir. Et puis un jour...
Now, another incredible piece of storytelling. And in this case, technology's smart. They're playing the role of an enabler. They provided technology to the daughter so she can show up at the game and for the first time ever, make a dream a reality. He can see his team play while he's doing his job. So I wanted to test drive this across commodities. For 32 years, I worked with Pepsi-Cola. One of the most important categories was water, and one of their biggest competitors was Evian. And Evian did an exceptional job, sourced from the French Alps, glass bottle, Parisian accent. They got a premium price. But over time, the consumer started questioning, how much am I willing to pay extra for that water versus any other water? What Evian did was brilliant use of storytelling. They stopped talking about what they did and where their water sourced and why water matters to you, because water is your fountain of youth.
Stepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the crew in the area. Still love you like that. No, we don't die. Yes, we multiply. Anyone press me here, the fire they sing. Act like you know we go. I know what both don't know. Let's them up and go. Oh, this is changing. Here come the upstepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Pick up the crew in the area. Still love you like that. Here come the upstepper. I'm the lyrical gangster.
Attention grabbing? That ad was showed and downloaded and shared over 250 million times. And they did exceptional branding. What really good branders do, they stand in front of their brand. They made it consistent. They had Evian everywhere. So I also wanted to look at service sectors. Does this work with the service sector people? So again, I wanted to go to what I thought was a sector in a complete attack, and that was travel agents. Travel agencies were really just transactional, weren't they? They got you an airline ticket. And boy, were they under attack. Airlines wanted you to go to direct. Hotels wanted you to go to direct. Booking.com wanted you to go direct. One day, this Danish travel firm realized if we keep talking about what we do, we're going to go out of business. If we're going to make things happen, we got to instead change the conversation to what you do when you're on holidays.
Faktisk har danskerne 46% mere sex på ferier sammenlignet med hverdagen. Så for at hjælpe den faldende danske fødselsrate, vil Spis opfordre alle danskere til at tage på en romantisk storbyferie. Det hjælper selvfølgelig også lidt på vores fremtidige forretning. Men er det ikke motivation nok at gøre det for Danmark, så har vi lavet en lille konkurrence. Book din rejse med vores ægløsningsrabat. Fyr den af. Bevis du har undfanget et barn, og vind 3 års forbrug af babyudstyr og en børnevenlig ferie. Men hvad nu, hvis du allerede har gjort din pligt? Eller hvis chancerne for en undfangelse ikke er særlig høje, jamen så se på det sådan her. Det handler ikke kun om at vinde. Det handler om at være med. Deltag i konkurrencen. Do it for Denmark.
And then finally, I wanted to also look at when you have something so good to tell. You know, when you feel that you're number one, you're the best at it. Isn't it easy as a marketing and salesperson to put that foot forward? But I would argue nobody cares unless it matters. Here's probably one of the most amazing pieces of technology. This technology allows people that are challenged to see actually watch movies. Let's look at this ad.
I think about the shape. I think about color. I also think about sound. I take it into my brain and I think about what would it look like to me? My Tin Man has a big toe the size of a house. The lion is small like a toy poodle and has webbed duck feet. And he is very scared of everything. My scarecrow has wooden teeth, and his fingernails are really long, and his clothes have tubes on them. And that's Dorothy. She looks like me.
Everyone has a favorite movie. Now, people with visual disabilities can find theirs. Comcast is proud to introduce the first talking guide from Xfinity. Visit emilysoz.com for more.
What I celebrate with this company is a humility to realize they're not the hero. They're just there to help people get to where they want to go. Now you could argue, Steven Spielberg, behind the lens, $1 million advertising budgets, I get storytelling, but how about face-to-face? Well, I'll argue that face-to-face storytelling is even more powerful, even more attention-worthy, because you can personalize it about the person you're talking to. You can make it about their quest. I'll give you 2 examples. Holt Renfrew. When I used to work with Holt Renfrew and I asked him what role do they play in the story, they love to champion themselves as a hero. We are the preeminent Canadian retailer. We're the luxury brand. Well, a couple of things happened to Holt Renfrew that shook them up. It was 2008. You remember back then, the Canadian dollar was actually stronger than the American dollar. So their customers could now go to New York and buy the brands that Holt Renfrew sold without paying a currency penalty. The second thing that Holt was struggling with is that the internet was starting to sell brands that Holt's used to have an exclusive on. So I went out and I observed what it was like to buy in Holt's. And I can tell you that it was disappointing. If you weren't dressed up, they wouldn't even pay any attention to you. And even if you got their attention and you asked to find something, more often than not, they'd look up and point you somewhere. Well, I went back to Holt Renfrew and said, well, you can point me over there, but I can point myself to the phone. You have to change the conversation from what you do, sell merchandise, to why it matters. And I came up with this concept of selling into the moment. I'll give you a couple examples. Let's say you walked in and came up to somebody at Holt's and They said, yeah, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm looking for a pair of jeans. And the person could point me to the jean rack, but what if they just said, why, what's up? Oh, I'm going skiing. It's jeans, skiing. A pre-ski party? Yeah, I got a couple of pre-ski parties. Have I got some outfits for you? Next thing you know, they're selling into my moment. If I went to them and said, hey, I'm looking for a nice white shirt with some accents. Well, they could point me to the shirt department, menswear, or they could simply say, why, what's going on? Well, I've got this presentation and it's going to be done over Zoom and virtual presentation. Let's say, shirt, if I got the perfect jacket and shirt for you, because you're going to absolutely own the camera. Next thing you know, they are selling into my moment and I'm paying attention. I was speaking to 500 entrepreneurs. At the end of the presentation, like I'll do with this one, I always ask, tell me about your problems, your opportunities, and we'll apply this model of storytelling to it. This person gets up when I invite him to do that and stands up at the back of the room, looks like a Tim Burton, this real tall person. All you can sort of see shadows when the lights are shining on you. The body language didn't look quite right. I said, hi, how can I help you? They said, well, I loved your speech, Tony, but you can't help me. This is not really what you want to hear as a speaker. But I go, why, what's up? He said, well, my grandfather started a business 40, 50 years ago, custom front doors. Didn't really like going on sites, but loved carpentry. Came up with the idea that I'll do these beautiful doors. My dad took it over, and my dad, he was entrepreneurial. Next thing you know, we have a showroom, we have a little sawmill, we have contractors and architects. I said, fantastic, you're probably right, I can't help you. Well, last year my sister and I bought it, and this year we're not sure we're going to make payroll by the end of the year. The audience just went quiet. It's tough for an entrepreneur to admit failure in front of their peers. They said, what's going on? Well, they're bringing in imported doors that look pretty good, and they can sell them for half of what it costs to make one. I said, well, are they same doors? Next thing you know, the body language changed, the shoulders went back, dropped the F-bomb, which I won't, but said, no, ours are solid oak, finest locks, hand-mounted hinges. So I looked at him and I said, well, buddy, you got to stop selling doors. The audience just went quiet. We paid this guy to come out, entrepreneurial conference, this is his family business. The best advice you can get is to stop selling doors. So you got to understand who your customer is and the quest they're on. You understand that when they come in, they're not just looking for a door. It's a door that's part of their life. I'll give you an example. How about if an older couple comes in, maybe even know the neighborhood they live in. Chances are they've got their eyes and ears really tuned into the crime that's happening around them. The neighborhood's changing. They don't feel as safe as secure because as we age, a lot of people lose their sense of that. They're not feeling as confident, as comfortable as they used to be. It might be just their balance, but they're changing. So when you're positioning your door with solid oak and the hand-mounted hinges and the fixtures, don't call it a door, call it a drawbridge. When you close it and lock it at night, nobody breaks in. Now, if a millennial comes in, it's just bought a starter home, they're dreaming of the possibilities, but you know they don't have a lot of dollars for renovation. You're their first impression, because every time they walk in, they're walking into what's possible. You know, each and every time you're in front of somebody, whether you're recruiting them or you're trying to persuade them to buy what you have to offer, you have to understand that they're on a quest in life. They're looking for safety, security, they're looking for love and belonging, they're looking for purpose, they're looking to be a better human being. And the more you can identify the quest they're on, the more they can identify what matters to them, the better you'll be at positioning how you can help them get to where you want to be. The better you can be the Yoda in the story. And that's the thing I always challenge marketers that want to talk about being number one, the best and the biggest, is the reason why you got to where you are is you're helping people get to where they want to go. That is where you'll find the purpose. Like I found purpose when I was selling radio advertising many years ago. It wasn't about selling the ad that mattered. It was the fact that customers came in the door and made their life savings a reality, that their dream could be possible. I've come to the end of our quest and I want to share one more story. I want to take you back to the 1930s. Lowly backbencher, his name's Winston Churchill. Well, at that time, he was out of favor by both political parties. Opposition thought him he was a boorish drunk, and even his own party thought he was selling his hands by having the audacity to write for American magazines. He just didn't do that, the House of Lords. What Churchill had, that most of them didn't, was an incredible vision. He could see what was happening around the world. Communism forming in Russia and China, brown shirts in Germany, fascism in Italy, Japan's appetite for more resources, America becoming the new superpower. But his prime minister was just watching and wondering what happened. He had no intent to make things happen. He just wanted dialogue and debate. One day, Churchill stood up in Parliament. Waited, had everybody's eyes were on him. He had the attention that he needed to make this statement. He looked at the Prime Minister and he said, history will prove that this honorable Prime Minister is wrong in these matters. For I and the people of England know it is so, because together we will write the history. And that was a moment where people looked at Churchill and said he could be our leader. And Churchill, probably the best politician ever to use storytelling to rally a nation and make themselves believe that they could get the desired outcome that they needed and wanted. If you want to write history, if you want to be part of making things happen versus wondering what happens, take advantage of what we've learned today. First is our most important word, at least when it comes to Endeavor, is attention. Attention breathes life into opportunity, breathes life into how we teach and coach and motivate and mentor and train, market and sell. We also learned though that a lot of businesses and brands and ideas are starving for attention. For no fault of their own. It's just, number one, the age of noise, too much and too many chasing a finite amount of time. It's tough to be heard when content's coming through a firehouse. Second thing we learned is this mobile device, 1 in 7 days now, because the world we desire is within arm's reach. This platform economy, these apps that run like Trojan horses into phones and intercept relationships we might have built over years, and redefining the entire supply chain. And finally, the pandemic, which is just changing my whole sense of priorities and the quest I'm on and what's important, what's in life. So if you want the attention that you need and deserve, take advantage of the power of storytelling. First thing I'll argue for is your brand. It's among the best out there. Lead with it, be consistent with it, be clear with it. Take advantage of the fact that it's a voice. And then each and every time that consumer goes, whether they're surfing on the net, driving through different neighborhoods, that they see the brand, they know that there's strength in numbers. Second thing is you start personalizing that story. Understand you're never the hero. The hero are the people that matter most to you. And the more you can find out about their quest, where they're heading in life, what matters most. The senior thinking about crying for the front door versus the millennial thinking about renovations. The more you can personalize it and demonstrate that what you do will help them get to where they deserve and need to go, the better you'll be at getting the attention you deserve. When you do that, you will write the history, because those that tell those stories, they rule the world. Thank you.